Hello, hello, hello. If you have pain anywhere in your body, chances are, or it's a possibility that it may be linked to some childhood emotional pain. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm really excited. I'm Jane Hogan. I'm the wellness engineer, 30 years as an engineer, now functional medicine health coach. As a result of my own journey with pain with rheumatoid arthritis and reversing it naturally. And I created the show Wellness by Design because I wanted to help people intentionally design a life and the health that they want rather than just reacting to the world around them. You can be a designer of your life and turn your life around. So welcome today to Joanna Chodorowska. I got it right, I think.
Yes,
Welcome
you
to the
did.
show, Joanna.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Jane.
I'm so happy to have you here. You and I connected a little bit over this pain and energy work, which, a few people like us find really, really fun and exciting, right?
I find it absolutely fascinating because everybody's pain, even though, let's say I had 10 people that come in for rheumatoid arthritis or osteoarthritis and joint pain, they all can have like different reasons why the pain is there. And so even optimizing the anti-inflammatory diet, it's optimizing it for them.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's very much a personalized part, but what we're going to talk about today and the emotional part, that is the part that I find so fascinating because those childhood issues, the way that we process them, that's the fun part, is to uncover it and let it go. See you, bye. I loved you then. I love you now in a different way. You can go now.
Yes, I love that. I love that. So your background, you're a nutritionist. I'm just going to have a little look at your bio that I got here. You're an intuitive nutritionist and energy therapy coach. I love that combination of things. You've been doing, you're the founder of Nutrition in Motion. You've been doing this for 16 years, you told me.
Yeah, I just started my 17th year, so.
Wow, amazing. So you incorporate real food. Love that. I feel like we're sisters here on this.
I know, sisters on a different continent.
Yes. Anti-inflammatory and mindfulness principles. Where are you, by the way?
I'm in Philadelphia.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We're two different countries, but
yep.
Yeah. So you incorporate all of these things, mindfulness principles, so you can master your body's own unique needs, and you help people explore their response to stress and emotional injury from childhood. So that's really what we're talking about today. I'm really excited to have you on to talk about this. So most of us come into the work that we're doing because of our own personal experience, right? So do you want to share a little bit about your personal experience that brought you there?
So my first work was actually in sales, and I was in chemical sales, and it was, I was a chemistry major. I had taken a course in nutrition and just loved it, but it was so far along in my schooling that I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to continue being a nutrition nerd and complete my chemical degree, So I was in chemical sales for, I don't know, a long time, almost 20 years. And then I had adrenal exhaustion. And it's the adrenal exhaustion path that's when I really first learned that the body can heal given the right tools. And nutrition was such a huge part of it. And it wasn't until about 6 or 7 years later that the opportunity came for me to start my own business. And then I started my business doing exactly that. Well, in that process, I degenerated a hip. And that was 7 years ago. Now I'm actually doing the same thing to the other one, but I'm going through a different pathway. But that is when I really perfected the anti-inflammatory plan. And I know that there is a connection between the food and the pain. It's a direct correlation. And even that is, based on each individual. But in the process of all that, I also came across this new system called the Path to Heal. And that's the emotional work that I do. It's really to help reframe situations and those childhood experiences that we had that we felt traumatized ourselves. And that energy stays in our body. So with my hip, a couple of years ago, it just started hurting from no place. And I thought, well, what the heck? I know I injured it like 2 years ago, but this is really ridiculous. And that was my body's way of saying, hello, this good enough plan you're doing isn't really good enough. You need to delve into all that emotional stuff because you got a lot of that emotional stuff.
The body's always talking, right?
The body is always talking, and we're not taught to interpret what that talk is. And pain is just a messenger so that we can look deeper into the aspect. It could be an imbalance of how we process the experience. It could be a spiritual disconnect where you're not really aligned with your purpose and you're fighting against yourself because your mind is telling you I should be, and your heart saying, no, I want something else. Yes. And it was through this whole experience that I know firsthand that all those criticisms in childhood I took on personally. And I also had a twin sister, which then the comparisons and the criticisms, like, why can't you be like your sister, were really, the way that I processed them were damaging. And it caused me to actually fight against who I really am.
Yeah. I've always thought about that for twins, how difficult it must be for the comparison going on all the time.
There is a comparison, and I think part of it is not just the twins, but it's the family dynamic. So your parents, they're two entities. It's not that they don't love you, but they may not be able to show you the love that you need at the time that you need it, the way that you need it. Mm-hmm. And then you're too young to actually understand that you need it in a different way, and you can't ask for what you don't know you need.
Yeah. Something else you said there too about it was the way you interpreted it, because a lot of times things happen when we're little kids and we're going around in that, basically hypnotic state, taking things in, and we may just interpret something the wrong way, and that causes a pain in us that we internalize and hold on to, and that comes out as physical pain later on.
Yeah. And it's something where I have learned. I have 3 sisters. So not only do I have my twin sister, but I have other sisters. And one is also a practitioner with the Path to Heal system that I work with. And when I first started, she actually offered to be a test subject. Like, oh, you need practice? I'll take healing. Sure. Why not? And that's when I really realized that, we were at the same kitchen table. How come I didn't even process that the same way, and you took it as something offensive, and vice versa? So it's really our viewpoint and how we processed it. And it became evidently clear, that the way I processed it was different than she processed it. The way my twin sister processed things were different than mine. I had a terrible time of comparing myself to her. And I did a really great job of comparing my weaknesses to her strengths, which that was turmoil. That was internal turmoil on a regular basis. And so I had to work through those layers as well, because wait, her weaknesses are my strengths. Why don't I look at it that way? And now I don't even look at any of it as weaknesses. I don't look for those things. I just look for what's working and how do we amplify what's working.
Right. Yeah. I just want to mention to anyone that's watching, if you're watching live, you can post questions now, and we'll try to get at them. If you're watching on the replay, you can ask questions, and we'll try to get to them at some point as well. So just feel free to ask questions or make comments. Let us know that you're here, whether this is resonating with you, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so Joanna, let's dive into the process. Like, how do you start digging into this with your clients?
So this is where the intuitive part comes in, because whenever I start my sessions, I'm always calling in the light, because the light is what illuminates the situation and the issue that needs to be addressed. But it's through asking the client, well, what's going on? What are the stressors that are going on? I know we've done the nutrition work. What was the challenge? What was the real reason that was that was an issue? And oftentimes they'll actually say, well, I have too much anxiety. I'm not sleeping at night. Okay, so tell me about your anxiety. And that's all I ask them is like, well, tell me a little bit more about that. And usually when they start explaining a little bit more about that, then there's an issue that is like, oh, well, that's coming up. okay, that's coming up. Are you ready to work through that issue with the energy work? And nobody has regretted saying yes.
Okay.
So, and then I work through my system to find out, okay, well, what is the aspect? Where did that actually come from? Where did that? And I call it a wound, because sometimes that's what it feels like. You've been wounded.
Right.
So it's really an exploration to find out, where did that wound originate? Was it in childhood? Was it in a previous life? How can we reframe it so that the client gets the aha, and they feel that shift, where that stuck energy, that stuck emotion is released, and they typically just feel a lot more calm, a lot more relaxed, and they come up with their own answers. I'm really the conduit to help them connect with their heart and what their inner wisdom is. So, yeah. And each session kind of takes its own flavor and course. And sometimes I just use oracle cards. Sometimes I actually have to do the dive in to tell the story. And that's where the system comes in. It helps to actually identify what that story is and where it originated. Mm-hmm. And it only works when the client actually goes, oh, I get it. Oh, that, right. And they can work through it that way. If I get it, it's fine, but it's not my story. So
yeah. I love a few things that you said there. And I draw on that too. I really draw my intuition and try to, I always center into my heart as well to say, how can I say the right things, find the right wisdom for the client to help them connect with themselves. Because we all have that wisdom within us, right? We all have that wisdom in us to know what's best for us. It's just that a lot of us are blocking it because of all the other stuff that's going on in our heads and in our lives.
It's almost like putting masks on. So we have this desire that we want to fit in. We want to be loved.
Yeah.
And through our experiences in childhood, that's when we're learning, well, what's acceptable, what's lovable, what's not. Yeah. And so then we come in and we add a mask because, I think mom and dad will like this version of me. Well, but that's not you. So at some point, and, I sometimes refer to it as glasses. You put so many pairs of glasses on, you can't see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my job is to really take those glasses layers by layer. Sometimes it's an instantaneous, we can take them all off, but it's really reconnecting us to our internal wisdom.
Yeah. And I love what you said there about the reframe, because that whole reframe, just seeing something from a different perspective, can shift things instantly.
Absolutely. And yeah. I'm going to just offer one. I typically am one of my best examples, but I'm going to use one of my clients where at first she didn't quite get it, but something came up about when she was younger, she was called obnoxious. And so she dimmed some of her light and some of her, her zest for life because she didn't want to be obnoxious. So it's something where parents don't intentionally wound us. They don't intentionally say things, but the way it lands and the way we perceive it, it's like, oh, well, there's the mask. I gotta hide that. You can't see that part of me because I don't want to get criticized again.
Yeah. Yeah. Criticism, it's very painful when you're younger, but the self-criticism, because what happens then is that you turn on this self-criticism, which is the worst of all, right?
Well, and that's a lot of what the work that I talk about is like, okay, I want you to love your body and your life. But if you become, because of, excessive criticism from parents, from teachers, from siblings, friends, the result is typically we become our own worst critic. And so, looking in the mirror, all you do is look for all your flaws. Oh, I got a wrinkle. Oh, I got this. Oh, I've got fat thighs. Oh, I've got something else. It's none of that. I mean, that's your perception. That's the lens you're looking through. And if we can reframe that so that you can actually start seeing more of the beauty, the stress releases, and then so does the pain, because stress contributes to that pain. And the stress of that emotional trauma is what we're trying to release. And then, obviously we ameliorate it with nutrition and mindfulness and just kind of catching yourself on how you view yourself and then how you view others.
Because it's habitual thinking, right? It's so then switching around that habitual thinking from, that's a comfort. It sounds weird. Even when it's uncomfortable, it's comfortable because it's what you know. But so
Right.
switching it
Yeah.
is the work, really.
Yeah.
Observing, switching. And how much do you draw on uh, this energy that outside of all of us, which is actually inside all of us?
So I call in the light on a regular basis, and even in client
I love that.
sessions, sometimes if I'm getting a little stuck, and I'm like, all right, like I need the situation illuminated so we can move forward. And so I use it all the time. I'm also an ordained minister, so that is part of what I do. Is it's just part of who I am now, and it's not something that I'm embarrassed to do when I call in the light for the session. Nobody looks at me like, oh, you're weird. But for the longest time, I really thought that was weird. So guess what? My hip hurt more because I'm not stepping into an aspect of me. I'm not loving this, the spiritual side of me to the extent that I need. And my body's basically saying, you need to love this a little bit more so that you can really allow this pain to release.
I totally get that because 30 years as an engineer, coming from a family of engineers, but I had always had the spiritual side, and I did Reiki training years ago.
I have that too. It's one of my little certificates up there.
I was looking at your certificates, thinking, well, maybe I should start putting all my certificates up there.
Why not?
But I wasn't embracing this side, and even now, like I still am. Working on how to express myself and the spiritual side that I believe is the key to healing. Because I believe ignoring that stuff, ignoring who I was, this self-criticism, all of these things were what led to my pain. And I see it over and over again with clients and their physical pain. There's definitely the emotional attachment, or well, it is an attachment that's creating
that we want to detach from.
Yes. Joanna, do you see particular patterns with particular types of pain? Or
yes and no. I mean, with every kind of pain, the anti-inflammatory diet works wonders. The emotional component is the other thing because stress always makes every issue worse.
Yes.
So that's the common link is the stress. And
I know, I see it too.
And the stress is typically coming from those suppressed childhood criticisms and those experiences where, we don't feel worthy of who we are. We feel that we're not enough. We feel that we are barking up the wrong tree. Children are meant to be silent, so then we stay silent. But then that's actually kind of digging a hole and burrowing through the body in different ways. Mm-hmm. So, the emotions, even though a lot of people don't, the medical community doesn't really register emotions as a thing, even though in 1997, Kaiser Permanente issued a study where they studied, I think, like 17,000 kids and adults. And it was all about the adverse childhood experiences and how your health is affected. The more of these experiences that you have, the more likely you're going to get cancer or cardiovascular disease or have obesity or have, certain addictions.
Yeah.
And these are all based on these 10 areas that they chose for the adverse childhood experiences. Criticism isn't specifically one of them, but in a way, criticism is emotional abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. What I found interesting when I first heard about the ACE scores and the adverse childhood events was that they don't even have to be that severe. Like, I mean, obviously, when a child is exposed to quite a severe adverse event,
a death of a parent, that's an adverse, really severe adverse.
Yeah. Event. Or abuse, severe abuse. But it doesn't have to be even that severe because it's our interpretation of it.
Right.
So even like I would say I had a pretty good childhood, but then I had a few things and had some criticisms that stuck with me. And maybe it was because I was, a more sensitive child. And so
Yeah.
I hung on to them a long time.
Well, and oftentimes I would be pissed off at the fact that I was a sensitive child, but I was a sensitive child. And
Yeah.
my twin sister, even up to a few years ago, would be, experiencing some of my things differently because of how she interpreted it in childhood. So then we clashed, and it wasn't pleasant.
Yeah.
So once I was able to go, okay, I understand now my story and how I got to this place. And yeah, I was a sensitive child. I did need somebody to just ask me what was going on. Why am I upset? And give me a hug, tell me it's going to be all okay, and off I could go play.
Yeah.
But I didn't get that, and I didn't know that that's what I needed.
Yeah.
So I ended up suppressing all those emotions, and I could get triggered into a bad mood pretty quickly. And I didn't have the coping skills in order to get through it because I didn't know what I needed. And it wasn't until I got sick, even the first time with adrenal exhaustion, that stress was a huge part of my adrenals basically not working.
And it's interesting that we play out the responses we have when we were kids to these stressful events when we didn't get what we wanted. We play it out as adults, but in a different way. But it's the
Yes.
same thing going on and on again.
Absolutely.
It's so interesting when you can shine a light on this for, like you do it for your clients, I do it for my clients, shining a light on these things to realize, oh, that's what that was. It was just a response. I can change my response.
Right. And even recently I had realized I got pissed off at my twin sister, and she, when people push your buttons, I always say that's because you're exposing your buttons. That's still something that you're allowing to happen because we haven't healed those emotions. We haven't worked through them with love, compassion, and understanding. So I suddenly had this epiphany that all the time that she was, always taking the other side so that I could prove how I was thinking, I was like, wow, all those years I was pissed off at her. And I really need to thank her because she challenged me to stand up for what I knew to be true for me. And so now if somebody asks, I'm like, okay, I don't have to get defensive. I can just step into who I am and just be. And just explain it because this is what I believe and this is what I have found to be true for me.
Right, right. Joanna, I love that. And I love thinking about, rather than looking back on any of our experiences, and I'm sure you do this as well, as being, well, I wish that hadn't happened. Well, I understand it, but I wish it hadn't happened. Like we had to appreciate that every part of our experience and how we respond to it and how the pain that we've had as a result, all of it brought us to where we are right now.
Yeah. And
that's
a
beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing, but that's, it sounds like such a simple thing, and it is, except that it's not easy.
Yes, not easy. But I believe that we are spiritual beings here having a human experience. We're here to learn. So all of these experiences are for us to learn. And if we don't learn, we just keep getting the same thing happening and happening again, right? So
absolutely, yeah. And I have that same philosophy. So I couldn't have said it any differently.
Yeah,
because we are souls having a human experience, and the emotions are part of who we are. So it's not about banishing the emotions, banishing the ego. It's about looking at it from a standpoint of, okay, if I'm experiencing this again, I must be looking at it incorrectly. And maybe there's a different, or not even giving yourself that demotion, so to speak. It's really saying, okay, maybe I need to look at it a little bit differently so that I can see a different angle and see this as, okay, this is how I need to do it because the way that I have been hasn't really worked to my advantage. It hasn't helped me love me more. It's actually helped me to love me less.
Right. Oh, that's so nice. I love that. Yeah. So it means there's still more for us to learn. There's still more for us to learn in this.
Well, love is the answer to everything.
I agree. Yeah.
So it's about, and really when I'm working with so many of my clients, it's about loving self and really allowing yourself to trust that you are on your path, and everybody is on their own path. Love yourself where you are. You know, if you don't love that part, we just work on things that do bring you joy so that you can step into that realm a little bit easier. Because as you bring in more joy, you experience more joy. If you can look for those things that bring you joy and things that bring you happiness, and then you experience more happiness, and then the dark stuff doesn't have any place to reside. You know,
Yeah.
to bring in the light so that the dark dissipates.
Right. So the more I found this in my own journey, and I see it in my clients, the more we can create those moments of feeling the light, and the longer we can sustain it, the less of the other stuff. So we just need to string together more and more. It's like pearls on a necklace,
Yeah.
and have them, more often and closer together. And eventually we've got this beautiful strand that is mostly light.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is what it is. And it's really just helping clients get out of that ravine that they fell into, and assist them in getting a little bit further away from the edge of the cliff. And that was one of the things that helped me through adrenal exhaustion is, as a competitive athlete, I had to get competitive about my healing, but I was always just dancing with the edge of the cliff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really like the way you blend this together too. It's, it's not all about the emotions. We have a physical body that needs to be supported as well. So we can't just, put crap in there and expect it to run well. We still need to look after this vessel that we've got and give it
Right.
the best that it can. Especially when you're healing, you need to give it the ultimate best. So we do need to do the nutrition side as well, and all the other stuff, the fresh air, the movement, sleep.
Right. And all those things. And it's finding that balance, when you're actually going through a stressful period, that's when you actually have to do self-care a little bit more intensely. It might not be an hour of yoga or an hour of biking or an hour of whatever it is. It might only be that you have only enough time for half an hour, or maybe even 20 minutes. But that's your commitment to you so that you can ground yourself, do something loving to you so that you can show up in a better version of yourself, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Love that. Okay. I know that you've got I'm just trying to find, I know that you got a gift that you want to give to our listeners, and thought I had it, but let me see. I think I have the link right here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that gift that you want to give to our listeners?
So the gift I have is actually I don't know if I would call it an ebook because it's only 2 pages, but it's 5 steps to ease emotional triggers.
Okay.
And it's really something that everybody can do on a regular basis. And it's not that you have to go through every single step, but there may be a couple that resonate with you more than others. And I find that I'll just go over it really quickly. The first one is to be aware of the emotional trigger. Be aware that when you suddenly start reacting, the first question that you might want to ask is, well, why am I being triggered by that? Why is that a trigger? And then that allows us to really kind of take that step back and potentially see that other viewpoint. Because that's when we step back, then that childhood memory may come back and go, oh, okay, maybe I need to work on that, and work through that with some love, compassion, and understanding. And then just step 2 is really just to acknowledge the emotion and acknowledge the situation. And it's not about accepting it. It's just acknowledging, what, this just happened. Now I need to, I'm not happy about it, and that's okay. We don't need to be guilty, but if you are, you can resolve that part. It's not a end all be all situation. We can always work ourselves out of the situation as we embrace love. Okay. Love for ourselves, love for the situation, love for the other person, even though they triggered us.
Right.
And then
Okay.
the third one is to learn how to basically ground yourself and connect with your heart, because your heart is where the wisdom is, and that's where the light is. So as
Love.
we expand the light, the situation becomes lighter and the answers become more apparent.
Beautiful. Love that. I do a lot with heart focused breathing, so that's perfect.
Yeah.
So that's three. What's number four?
Number four is to release the trigger, and give yourself grace so that you can fill the wound with love for yourself and who you are.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Was it, and there was five, right? Was it, or four or
Right.
five? Okay.
Five. So
One
the
more.
fifth one, after you do all that part, because there's ABCs in each one of these, then the last one is to respond calmly, because that usually we react.
Right.
And we're all, because we're in that place of we've been triggered, we're reacting, but we can respond from a place of love sometimes after we've done these other steps, so that we can actually express what it is that we need and what it is that has just happened, and really express what it is that that happened and how we processed it, so that others can understand us better, and so that we can understand ourselves better.
Yes. Yeah. So this is the link to go pick up that gift that Joanna has for you. I love that, Joanna, because what you're doing in those steps is creating a little bit of space. So instead of doing that reacting, you're creating that space to observe it, notice it, forgive it, and then react in a different way. Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and when we can respond with love, then we diffuse the situation, even though, the two people might be bickering at each other. If you can just do that simple breathe in through the nose, get yourself grounded. Sometimes it takes 3 to 7 times. As you get used to it, you can do it in 1 or 2 breaths and be fine. And then you kind of call on the light and call on your heart, like, okay, what do I say now? What's going on?
Yeah.
And
Trust yourself. It allows you to tune into that intuition. Okay, I love that. So I always end the show with one last question. What is one action someone could take today to improve their health?
The one thing based on what we were doing today is literally breathe. Really just breathe and breathe in the light. Ground yourself so that you can see a different perspective. And from that new perspective, you can respond with love.
Beautiful. And I that little expression that you use when you word it that way, breathe in the light, I think that automatically makes people breathe in deeply and probably into their belly, because you want that good light right within you, right? So just that little expression is so nice. Joanna, that is so great. And I know I've got links there where people can find you on your website and so on. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming and sharing your years of experience and what you've learned, and for the benefit of everyone. So I know I've learned something today, and I hope that I know the audience has as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jane. It's been just really a pleasure to be here. And I really do feel like we're doing the same thing on different sides of the pond.
Yes. Yeah, me too. All right. Take care, my friend. And
You
thanks
too.
to everyone for watching.
Blessings to all.
Bye.